Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the least ideal Sibelius Symphony cycle by major conductors. Oh, so many people have done Sibelius, and so many people have done it mediocrely. And this is a particularly special video because today is the birthday of our good friend and viewer, Amir. Hi, Amir. How you doing? Happy birthday. I know that you're a Sibelius fan, and so I wanted to prioritize this one so that you could have a happy birthday looking at all of the recordings that I hope you don't own or don't have to listen to. I'm sure with your exquisite taste and sensibility that you have already either heard and discarded these recordings or have no intention of listening to them at all. Good for you, and many happy returns. So let's get to it, shall we? Symphony No. 1, Colin Davis and the London Symphony on its own label. Colin Davis is a Sibelius specialist, super specialist. He made 3 complete Sibelius cycles, and the first symphony got steadily worse each time he did it. His best one by far is with the Boston Symphony. It was always a little bit on the grand and slowish side, but that performance at least had Vic Firth playing timpani in the first movement, which is an enormous benefit. It really is. Then he redid it for RCA with the London Symphony, a terrible cycle that everybody disliked. I've mentioned this before. I mean, I know some members of the orchestra who spoke to me and who said that they knew it all went wrong. So he redid it for the LSO's own label, and it went wronger. Davis was a very improvisatory conductor. You never quite knew what was going to happen. And in this first symphony, he just hoochie-coochie and italicizes his way through the piece, speeding up and slowing down and doing all kinds of weird things in weird places. And gosh, it's just awful. Absolutely awful. So let's start with that one as a least ideal Sibelius verse from somebody who really should know better, who really has the expertise and the identification with the idiom. But you just never know. Symphony No. 2, Herbert von Karajan and the Berlin Philharmonic on Warner, the digital one. We're going to see that a lot of bad Sibelius symphonies, just not twos, are on Warner. I'm not sure why. But this Sibelius 2 is just sluggish and dreary, and it was glassily, that's a word, glass-like, just sort of brittle, unpleasantly recorded in early digital sound. And the real killer in this performance is that Karajan takes the finale at a crawl. It's more than 16 minutes long. I mean, it really should never last more than, 14 max. 12 or 13 is much better, because it goes around once too many times. It's the same thing over and over again. And, it's got to move, and it doesn't. Oh, my gosh. Karajan presumably was going for some kind of grandeur, but it just dies. It's dead in the water. It's completely dreary and droopy. So, Karajan, he did an earlier one with the Philharmonia that was a little bit better. A little bit, but no. This just is not going to be on anybody's list of ideal Sibelius symphonies. Then, oh my goodness, Symphony No. 3, Barbirolli with the Hallé Orchestra, his complete cycle with the Hallé that he did later in his life, towards the end of his life, actually. And it's a mess. It was always a mess. The orchestra was always second rate. He did a beautiful disc of Sibelius tone poems with Hallé, where they're rather unusual, shall we say, timbral qualities, the scruffy strings and snake charmer oboes and whatnot, actually worked rather well with the music. But the symphonies require much more subtlety and finesse than Barbirolli was able to manage. He always did a wonderful Symphony No. 2, although his best one was with the Royal Phil, not with Hallé. And this No. 3, which is the one we're talking about, first movement is just, it's sort of like the Karajan finale, only applied to the Symphony No. 3's first movement. It's droopy and slovenly and soggy, boring, and the whole performance is boring. The finale tries to wake up at the end, kind of, sort of, a little bit, but it doesn't. The woodwinds and the slow movement are, shall we say, less than supple, and the whole performance is just dead in the water. So there's that one. Next, Symphony number 4. Oh, Simon Rattle, the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra on Warner. Rattle considered himself something of a Sibelius guy. Don't ask me why, given his results in Sibelius's music. I saw him do the 7th live. It was a very bizarre concert. It really was a strange concert that had a Haydn Symphony, Sibelius 7, Petrushka, and La Valse, all on one program. Just a real grab bag. And what fascinated me about it is that, he made a recording of him talking about the 7th now, but he made a recording of the 7th that was incredibly sluggish. And this performance was like 15 minutes long. I mean, it was like the fastest thing I ever heard in my life. It just went to show that he had no conception of how the music is going to go. And that's what you notice in this performance of the 4th. It's note accurate. They play it. I give him credit for that, but it has absolutely nothing else. I mean, there isn't any grimness to the first movement. The opening on the strings just isn't shaped in any particular way. The finale doesn't rise to that grinding, clinching, scarifying climax. It's there. Everything there. The slow movement, which is totally bleak and desolate, it flows, but it doesn't have that, desolation. I mean, it's just there. It's there. It's totally, completely, utterly average in every possible way, in a performance of a symphony, which is anything but average. That doesn't mean you have to do something bizarre to it. I mean, it doesn't. But there has to be a certain way to highlight its special qualities. The darkness, the grimness, the grinding dissonance, the moments where the rays of sunshine briefly break through. None of those things happen in a way which makes you sit up and take notice and say, oh, yeah, this is really cool. It's just there. I mean, it's a totally uninteresting performance. Next, oh, goodness gracious, Bernstein, Symphony number 5, Bernstein with the Vienna Phil on Deutsche Grammophon. Bernstein's remakes could be really thrilling or they could be bizarre. And the Vienna Phil was never a very good Sibelius orchestra. Even when Mazel did the complete cycle, he got them to play. He did. And they did some beautiful, beautiful work in that cycle. That is true. But, they had some evidently, for Mr. Bernstein, reservations, because this performance of the 5th is as heavy-handed and clumsy. I mean, clumsy. And the ironic thing is that Bernstein's first recording with the New York Phil was like the reference recording for the work for many, many years. It was superb and exciting as hell and just wonderful. And there's an incredible video where Bernstein is trying to teach the piece to a bunch of conducting students, and they're doing the first movement, and he finally just takes the kid and goes like, yeah, get out of my way. And he just keeps going and does the whole first movement, sort of explaining along the way, the way that you have to, create the transitions and employ a gradual accelerando for the transition to the second half of the first movement all the way to the end. And he does it all fabulously. He really does. So what happened here? Why is everything half tempo and just clunky? I mean, he was never clunky. Well, he managed to be clunky here. So there you go. Symphony number 6. This is a choice that may surprise you. Paavo Berglund and the Helsinki Philharmonic on Warner. Berglund was, of course, a remarkable Sibelius, and he made a fabulous cycle in Bournemouth. Then he did another one in Helsinki. Then he did another one with the Chamber Orchestra of Europe. And, they got progressively more ethereal. And the Helsinki one is the middle one, and it was an early digital recording. And it came out, the interesting thing about Berglund is that it came out at the same time as Simon Rattle's, and it was completely ignored by Warner, EMI at that time, because of course Simon Rattle was coming out, and Simon Rattle was the big hot thing. The British press was oozing all over everything he did. And so they didn't care about Berglund. Now, Berglund's Helsinki cycle is enormously better than Rattle's. It's even better in the Sixth Symphony. The problem with this performance of the Sixth Symphony is that Berglund had this strange idea of taking the finale extremely slowly. Sibelius marks it allegro molto. It's supposed to be quick, and the opening da 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 ya da 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 da. It's a tough piece to do well because that theme reaches its apotheosis in that gorgeous section toward the end of the movement, just for the strings, which actually should go faster than allegro molto. Bernstein does it at the tempos that Sibelius indicates. He's one of the very, very, very few who tries it and gets away with it. The string playing could be better, but he does it. Berglund obviously didn't trust Sibelius's own tempo designations and wanted to save room for that passage at the end. And the result is that the whole first half of the movement is terribly, terribly lethargic. Most of the problems you'll see in these performances of not ideal Sibelius have to do with tempo and with movement, because Sibelius, of course, was a master of movement, of getting the music to fly along as if borne aloft, usually on a chugga-chugga string ostinato, chugga-chugga, 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 then the things happen on top of that. That's what happens with the Sixth. When it's ya da 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 dum ba ya da 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 the strings underneath, and it pushes the music forward. But in other sections where you don't have the ostinatos, the music still has to move. That's why Sibelius always had a problem with his endings, because he gets the music moving so well, he doesn't quite know how to stop it. The forms complete themselves sometimes before they feel like they're really over. The Sixth, that happens really quite a bit in the first three movements almost. The first movement is, has all kinds of attempts to find an ending. The second movement sort of just stops right in the middle. The Scherzo has a good ending, that really does. And the finale ends softly, and it drains away, and it's beautifully managed. That's well done. But the first half has to have a certain wildness and a rawness. Da 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 dum, bumpa da 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 dum, timpani, boom, bumpa da 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 dum, da 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 dun 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 dun, boom 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 boom. It's got to. You can't just be about string playing. Berglund was a big guy to handle do string articulation and all that stuff, and he gets more and more fussy about it. By the time his last cycle comes along, it's chamber music, and it's all about the strings and how they play. It's very interesting, actually, because it's so extreme in what it does. And the first one is marvelous because it has that rawness and the edge that the music needs, and the Bournemouth players really, really played for him. They played very, very well for him. The Helsinki players played for him too, but it's just not as interesting overall. And that Sixth, it's a tough symphony to pull off. It really is. It has to flow with complete naturalness, and this doesn't. It's too fussy. Next, last, and certainly not least, Symphony No. 7, Thomas Beecham. You got this one, Amir? You listening? And the Royal Philharmonic on Warner. Beecham was a Sibelian to the manner born. He used to call Sibelius Old Sib. They were buddies, or at least Beecham probably thought they were, because he was buddies with just about everybody. And he made beautiful Sibelius recordings. He really did. But this seventh, it's very late Beecham, and he's holding the reins of the Philharmonic, Royal Phil, actually, very slackly. It's a performance that never gets off the ground. It really doesn't. It's in stereo, actually. It's late Beecham. And I remember when I first got it, and even the British people, like the Penguin people and all that, said, no, it's just the magic is gone. And it is. It really is. I mean, it's very sectionalized. And the orchestral contribution, I mean, the way that they play seems somehow tentative. It doesn't dig into the music the way that it's supposed to, especially in the final, culmination when the main theme returns on the trombones and the strings are, sort of grinding away and all that dissonant clashing is happening, and, in that final scream with the horns going, wah! and the strings are shrieking. It's just not, it's just tepid. It's totally, totally tepid. It's a tepid teapot with no tempest. You know what I mean? So Beecham, and no, it's just not ideal. Beecham fans will hang on to it and savor it for, a moment or two of Beecham-esque subtlety. I mean, you go and find them. I've given up on this performance. I tried for years to really like it, but it is not one of the great performances of the sevenths, and therefore, even though it may not be the worst thing ever, it is not eligible to be included in any list of ideal Sibelius cycles by major conductors. It could be in the least ideal cycle, hence its presence here. So there you have it. 7 not ideal performances of Sibelius's 7 symphonies in this least ideal Sibelius cycles. And you'll see that sort of the lesson we get from this one is that, they're either conductors who are off their game or misjudged the music generally, or maybe like Rattle just don't have the cojones to pull it off, or people who've done them over and over and just got worse each time. I mean, they should have quit while they were ahead. It's a lesson that we find over and over and over in the classical music biz. Artists skip, they jump to other labels, they re-record the same repertoire with those other labels, or they make the same performances, the same works over and over again because, well, now we can do it in digital or we can do it this way. But behind all of those excuses and reasons for remakes, there has to be, I'm going to do it better this time. I have something new and fresh to say, which is at least, if not superior, equally valid and fabulous as the first time. That particular aspect of the affair never enters into the equation. And so you get this. So happy birthday, Amir. Thank you all for listening. If you want to make yourself miserable over a Sibelius cycle, pick out some of these and go for it. Otherwise, listen to the great ones. It's much more rewarding. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.